What is the date today?
21st.
Today is?
Yeah.
That's the solstice.
Yeah. Actually, here it actually happens tonight.
Yes, yes. So,
It's like later tonight, I think.
yeah.
Beautiful.
So Vandy is here,
All right.
Or 6.
Lori T is here. Mahalia. is here.
I skipped a week in my mind somehow. That's what happens when you no longer believe in time.
What happens?
Weeks of collapse. Time. She knows.
Maybe you're waiting to Sheena. Is Sheena?
Yeah, it's Sheena still unloading.
He'll be okay.
Yeah, should I let her out?
I think she'll be.
Things will be okay.
It's a he,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He will be okay.
Right now, we're trying to decide if Yoda's okay in here. He typically comes over to meditate in the middle of the room. So, but he's waiting for Tashina right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So Linda Landon just joined.
oh, great. So glad you're here, Linda.
I'll let him.
Yeah.
Just.
He's worried about Tashina.
That look more exciting.
Is that door open?
I think the door
Yeah.
is that.
There's another door out there.
Oh.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're shutting him in the hall. He'd really be pissed if you did that. Thank you, Grace.
Yes. Please you.
So we're together on the solstice. I think that's significant, but I don't know what the significance is, so I won't go there. I do know that it's the darkest. Is that correct?
Longest dark.
Right. And so it's the opening, the darkness into the light. Recently, I just heard that the definition of guru, which nobody in this room proclaims to be, it was gu means darkness and ru means light. So it's from the darkness to the light. And that's what we are all about, coming into the light of our own being. So right now, we'll just take a few minutes to center ourselves through meditation. Just a deep inhale. And a relaxing into the open spaciousness that is our true nature and is the space in which all reality arises. As we inhale, we just relax. Exhaling, we deepen into that spacious, awake awareness. Knowing the knowing, I know that. What does it mean to know something, to be one with it? And we come home and know it. This consciousness, this awareness, the witness aspect, the scintillating aliveness of it. And that's where we are. So another inhale. And allowing the mind to get really still and just relax into the spacious awareness. The quantum field, the Father and I are one. Each of us can say that. And the designation of Father points to the quantum field. We know ourselves as that. And in this field, everything that appears arrives here. Everything that shows up in any way at all, whether it's an object, a thought, an experience, all is sourced in this awareness, this spacious consciousness. And in this moment, as we open into that, we can allow it to be consciousness without an object, just open effulgence, the arising and overflowing, the toroidal arising of all that is love and connection and peace, and the overflowing of it, and knowing ourselves as that. Into this space today, I want you to imagine a closed lotus flower. It's like at the center of this spaciousness, recognizing this as your heart. The symbol is an ancient one, the lotus blossom closed. And now as we allow it to begin petal by petal to open, the opening in the middle of this spacious awake awareness, we have created the image, the experience, the lotus. And as this opens, it's like the opening of our own heart. It's the opening of awareness, consciousness. And in the center, as this lotus is totally open, there is the Christ child. This is the child that each one of us is. The beauty, the brilliance, the radiance of this precious I am that. This is the birth of the Christ child within us, knowing ourselves as that, reminding ourselves that we have confiscated and distorted our childlike true nature on behalf of a limited, wounded conclusion. I don't matter, I'm not good enough. But today, in honor of this rebirth, our own, and the knowing of the event in what we call history, knowing of this event in what we call culture, and collective conditioning, collective awareness, this symbol is powerful one, the healed being that I am. And this rebirth that occurs on the solstice with Christmas is the honoring and the acknowledgement of the child. The Christ child, when it's reborn within you, relieves us of the need to understand. It relieves us of the need to objectify. It relieves us of the need to get something or avoid something. And so we come home to our own child, the heart of the matter, and know ourselves as this one. And so this Christ child is born in the manger of our own hearts, alive, happy, playful. Knowing ourselves as this, we begin to reside, to relax, to come home. And knowing is meant to be at one with. To know something is not to understand it mentally. To know something is to be at one with it. I am that. And from this place, this renewal time, this brilliant arising of the possibility of renewal, we are together, coherently together in the frequency of love and connection. And so it is. I think all of us have shared the some version or some form of the story of Jesus, because we were all born in, apparently in Western culture. I can't see well, but I don't notice anybody in here who's not from the Western collective conditioning. And the beauty of that story is that each one of us lives our own version of that as we incarnate into duality. We are caught up in a mind-made reality, and the mind is fueled by fear and acknowledged and upheld in the idea that it knows the solution to every problem. And so we're caught in the idea that we are served by the mind. But what the mind is creating in its interaction with fear is one problem after another. And so it starts to have its precedence, its position of the one that decides, because we were caught in, most metaphorically represented in the garden story, we were caught in an acknowledgement and even an addiction to judgment. And in that, the low frequency of judgment keeps us caught at the level of the problem. So looking out through the lens of judgment, the mind looking out through the lens, it's awareness looking out through the lens, but the lens is created by the mind, right? And then we're caught up in the involvement with what's wrong. And that is the perpetuator of this entire reality, the ongoing involvement with what's wrong. So whatever we're looking at, wherever we're coming from, we bring with us the distorted field, the distorted lens, that there's a way it should be, and it's not that way. And it must be somebody's fault, because I didn't do it, right? And so we're caught in the miasma of a mind-created duality that keeps us locked in, because anywhere else, the fear keeps us locked in there. It's so convincing to believe that there's a solution at the level of the problem. And we see problems at the level they were created, right? We don't realize that it's our distortion field that gives us that perspective. Because we're locked into that, we engage in it. And in that engagement, we proliferate the problem. Once we start to identify, to whatever degree is available to us, with awareness, with the perceiver of what's going on, rather than the problem solver or the victim of what's going on, everything starts to clear. And the reason that it starts to clear is because that ability to observe rather than be caught up in, the ability to observe is no longer fearful. It's like, this is what's happening. There's no longer a hesitation. There's no longer a low frequency of it's happening to me, and this is a problem, and I've got to work it out, and it's somebody's fault, right? So now, coming from awareness, what's going on is just what's happening. And because that's now we are like with it, we don't have to resist it. We don't have to do anything with it. And we will be informed, not through the mind's equation of what needs to happen for it to be corrected. We will begin to be informed through our own connection, right? What happens when we see a problem is we disconnect from it. We want to believe that it's over there and I'm over here. And the way I can deal with it is stay here and get control. Or, as I always say, I have a number for a drive-by shooting you can use too. You know, it's like, I'm going to have to deal with that. And that is the frequency of fear. And what that resistance does, it installs the problem. Even if it appears to change, it will show up another way, another iteration of that same consideration, that same problem. So as we come home to our true nature, which is awareness, and we are observing, and now you can't get home to your true nature as long as you believe that you're a piece of shit or that you don't matter, right? I always forget that caveat, right? I was like, no, just come from awareness. Well, there is a barrier to coming from awareness, which is the place that all of us are working right now. And that is to see through what I've been believing about myself that keeps me separated through fear from connection to apparent others or to a problem, because the minute that we understand through our awareness that the thing that's missing in the problem is me, then I easily show up for it appropriately, no longer resisting it or trying to make it go away, right? And so there are varying ways that out of our intuition, our inner teacher, we begin to be very powerfully available for whatever's showing up. That's not available to one whose beliefs they're not good enough or that they don't matter. So that's where we are in intersection energetically. One is fear-based and the other is available. The other is a yes. The one that's caught in fear has to have both hesitation and usually a no, or the idea that somebody else is not understanding them. Yeah, so I often hear working with people that, especially in the dynamic of relationship, he just doesn't get me. And my response is always the same. You're the one who doesn't get you, and you have to go first. Right? Whatever we're wanting an apparent other to respond with or to or on behalf of, that's our job. We've projected it out there because we're against ourselves. So the projection is what's going on. As the distortion field clears, there are small openings, and they're openings into new possibilities. And as that frequency begins to prevail, because now it's the frequency of love, not of fear. As that frequency begins to prevail, the field responds and your life changes. You know, you can't do that to get it, which is the high bar in a way. But once you start to come from that place, because this is a frequency reality, it shows up on the basis of frequency. All of us have had the experience of having a shift in consciousness, major or minor, and the outworking from that shift shows up as difference in our external conditions, because they are sourced by our consciousness. Our external conditions are sourced by our consciousness through the action of the quantum field. Okay. So with this new year approaching, the opportunity is to come home to yourself, to come into alignment with yourself, to know if there's something there that doesn't feel good. We understand, we in this group, both on Zoom and here, we understand that if there's suffering, we know that we're believing something about ourselves that's not true. So that information is priceless. There were decades in the life of this Pali person where I didn't have that. I didn't understand that. I hadn't come upon that. But we all understand it now. Who I am being is sourcing what I am seeing, experiencing. Who I am being, who am I being? Who am I being to myself? What is that shaped by? What is that early wounding out of which that conclusion came? So I think we have the as far as I know, and I'm always open for suggestions or anything, any other possibility, but I think we have the best tool going for using what occurs to us that we call a trigger to find out what it is that we're believing about ourselves, so that we can, in seeing it, can begin to dispel it. The minute that you're seeing anything, that's awareness, that's the witness. And as long as you're seeing something, you know that you're not it, right? It's now like a description of the ego person. Okay? So it's something that you have. It's not who you are. Who you are is the awareness that is noting that you've been playing a particular role in a particular way for at least this lifetime. We all have enough kinds of sense of prior lifetimes or other dimensions in which we may operate, like in a dream at night. We may operate it as a different entity, but we know it as ourselves, don't we? In the dream at night, it's very easy for us to know which one of us is being the star, the main player in that dream. We have that identification, but we're still watching it, aren't we? So that's the I think the invitation for the new year is to become more committed to true nature, to become more committed to the softness, the openness that comes when I'm not against myself, and to notice that if I am against myself, in other words, I'm experiencing something that I don't want to experience, then I'm caught in a lie. To use that so that we don't just glaze over it, you know. Triggers are like the most important information you can get. This core self-concept that's been running the show out of fear is a gnarly ball of yarn. It's really convoluted and congested, and it takes vigilance. It takes us wanting this more than anything else. The thing that we're wanting, we are already it, but there's something in the way of experiencing ourselves as that. And that's what we're up for. Everyone here is up for that, because we know that's where freedom and possibility and a whole new reality depends. So that's my Christmas message. I won't sing Christmas carols for you guys, but I would love to field any topics around these issues. It's always the same issue. We're arising out of a reality that's been caught in duality, polarity, and fear. And it's our job. We came to do this. We deeply know that. Every one of us here knows that. We want to wake up into a brilliant, amazing reality that is our birthright. So, who's up?
Questions? If you're in the room, raise your hand or speak out. If you're in the Zoom room, please hit the reaction button and raise your hand so I know to spotlight you.
So did any of you have the sense of identification with what I call the Christed child? That aliveness at the center of what is often hidden. Yeah.
So,
do we have any?
Yeah, we have Juliana.
Julie, yay. Yes. Yeah, that precious being is the one that gets thrown under the bus right away, right? When we start to experience an external reality that tries to influence us into believing that we're the problem, or believing that we're the solution to the problem. There's that, right?
Go ahead, Juliana.
Happy winter solstice. Oh, just a sec. I have to shoo someone out of the room. I'm Pali.
Yeah.
I have a question about when when in the 6 steps, right? It's the 6 steps, right? Yeah.
Right.
when you're aware that you're encountering a trigger and it's that core belief, and you identify it and you forgive yourself, you dissolve it like an Alka-Seltzer. How do you know that you've done it? Because, for instance, I feel like it's, I come up on that core belief and I'm like, yep, I know this song. It's on the radio again. I forgive myself. I remember the moment. I know exactly when that happened. And I forgive everyone in that situation. I forgive myself, but what am I to think if I just keep seeing it, and to some degree it's still running the show,
Right.
but I'm able to identify it.
Yeah, well, the way I just described it as a gnarly ball of yarn, it are even layers. It's like it's like an onion. We're coming upon one layer after another. It will have there's a predominant wounded conclusion, and I'm sure you're doing this part, but it sometimes gets it isn't given enough of time that as it needs. And what that is when that happened and I had that experience, what did I conclude that meant about me? And it's kind of a subtle thing, because there's a child in there, and it may seem very childlike. It may seem that the child wants to hide from the spotlight of your awareness on that conclusion, because it was damning it's damning to oneself to believe that I'm not important, I don't matter, right? So, but that's what we're forgiving. What we're forgiving is that conclusion. I don't matter, I don't deserve to live, I'll never get what I want, and even that's going to have an identity under it. So what we're looking for in terms of the forgiveness is to find out what we believed that meant about, because that was the installation. That's the program that gets installed, it's the conclusion. It's like a logarithmic conclusion that's very specific. It has a very specific frequency to it, but we can bring it into the light by getting there with what we experienced and how it made us feel. But we need to go deeper into, and when that happened, what did I believe that meant about me? Does that help?
Kind of. It's still
Are you doing that?
yeah, I mean, I can give you more detail, and I'm sure there are other core belief moments, but this was something that probably happened when I was about 4.
Mhm.
And I had my cousins who are about my age visiting, my aunt and my uncle, and I remember my mom made me take a nap when my older brother and my cousins were all playing in the driveway. My bedroom was right over, and they were riding bikes, having a great time. And I just was so incensed that I was supposed to take a nap when one of my cousins was my age. And I went down and I kind of spied on my mom and my aunt. They were having coffee, and I was just so angry and so annoyed that I was deemed needing to take a nap.
Right.
So the core belief that has come up for me a lot has been either I've missed out on something,
Mhm.
I'm too late to the party or to the situation,
Mhm.
I'm not being taken seriously. And I'm able to ID that when it comes up, like that whole image of my brother and my cousins riding their bikes below my bedroom. And I'm able to, chuckle and be like, there it is.
Yep.
And, I forgive myself. I forgive my mom. I forgive all of that, but it still comes up on the regular.
Yes. So the place I think that will take you the next level deeper is what is true about a person who doesn't get included. What is true about a person who's left out, who's too late? Because see, underneath all of the things that we can acknowledge and that we can recall experiencing is this fundamental self-identity. You concluded it meant something about you, that you were left out, that you weren't allowed. I don't know if it's available to you right now, but that's the play. That is the piece that requires our forgiveness, because it was never true, but it was unavoidable in that situation. Are you getting what I'm pointing to?
Kind of.
Yeah, because you're at the level where I know what I felt. I felt left out. I felt like excluded, all of those things. But see, what's implied there is that there's something wrong with me, or something. It may be more specific than that. It's like only people who are in blanks get left out, are not included.
Mhm.
It's going to be, it could be pretty dramatic in a way, but that's what gets buried immediately with the early wounding. My idea about what that means about me, like I'll never have what I want, or like it's something, there's a deep flaw that gets revealed underneath. I'm not included. I was left out, right?
Mm.
And it's an identity. The kind, what kind of person gets left out? What kind of person is not included? What kind of person has to sneak around? I mean, because now you're doing things you don't want to do, right?
Right. I think the conclusion I had was that I was being babied. I wasn't being taken seriously. I was being deemed as needing
special
more
treatment.
special treatment. I needed to grow up more, or I don't know. I was.
So that is in the category of I'm flawed somehow.
Yeah.
It's going to be in that category area. Yeah. Really good light on how the 6 steps sometimes get stymied before we get to the real core self-concept, because we can do the forgiveness, and we do have the light that comes on with that memory, that feeling, having access to that memory. And it's valid, and everything that you experience then is good information, but it's not what the conclusion was about yourself that got installed. It's closer to where we just got to.
Okay.
Thanks, honey.
Okay. Love you.
I love you.
Can I make a comment
Yes, please.
about that process? It occurs to me, listening to her, that it's yes, that it's unavoidable for those things to keep recurring and recurring and recurring, that as many times as we need to keep looking at it, it will come up. But it doesn't seem to me that there's anything wrong, that if it keeps showing up, if I keep getting triggered, it's like Byron Katie would say, I look forward to the next time I get to say that, see that that's what's going on. So I just wanted to say that for me, I have recurring triggers also.
Right.
I don't think, I think that's the way for the healing to happen.
Well, it's going to be in that manner. It's going to be layered, like you're saying, for sure. And at the beginning, we may even think it's done, and then we have resistance to it showing up again.
Mm-hmm.
But every time it does show up, in other words, every time we're triggered, we have an opportunity to go into that much deeper place of what did I believe about myself. You know, we can say I was not wanted, I wasn't included, and there are a lot, and all of that's true, and that was the experience of the child. But then if we get to what the deeper place in us, whereas I must be a piece of shit if I'm not included, right? I mean, it's going to be really underneath all of those experiential memories, and which are all great, and it can come up over and over, even at that level, for sure.
And I like what she said about, there it is again.
Yep.
That when I'm in that level of pure awareness, of unadulterated, non-judgmental awareness, then it's able to say, there it is again.
Right.
There's that conclusion that I came out again. And it always stings a little. I always feel a little contraction.
Mhm.
But there it is again. And in your talk, I'm gonna tie something in here. When you're opening Satsang there, it occurred to me also that there's a purity, there's a certain purity of that theme with the child there, the golden child. And that's really what awareness is, that when I'm in pure awareness, there's a purity where no matter what happens, there's no judgment. That is a rare thing for me, I have to say, but it does happen. I do have those moments of purity where there's no judgment, and it feels so wonderful to be that free. That nothing up there is making some story
Right.
about it. There's just purity that feels like, oh, this is what freedom feels like. This is liberation. And of course, I imagine that meditation is one of the ways we keep having more and more and more purity in our awareness, because we're sitting in it so much more. Is that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The willingness and the ability to just drop into what's already there as awareness. There isn't anything that doesn't partake of awareness. Otherwise, you wouldn't know it. I mean, if there is something that doesn't partake of awareness, you ain't going to know it. It's not going to be a problem. But awareness is the field in which everything arises, and the ability to drop into there and can be experienced as consciousness without an object, right? But we can also bring objects into there, like a belief, like I did with the lotus blossom and the Christed child, which is our true nature. That's the child that enters the kingdom of heaven, right? With freedom and ease and the fun of it all. I mean, this reality has the potential to be happy and fun-filled, but we've held it in the polarity so that if we get the fun of it, we have the anxiety that the other end of the stick is just awaiting its turn. So we're not free because our mind is caught in polarity, in the duality of right and wrong and good and bad. Thank you, Grace.
Yeah, Lori, hang on, let me spotlight you. Give me a second. Okay, there you go. Lori.
Aloha, everyone. Aloha. Nui loa, Pali. Thank you so much. You've been a gift to me these past several months. And I've really enjoyed those moments of getting into that vastness, that freedom, and the awake awareness, talking to people, moving in the world, driving, finding that higher selfless vibration. And it's fun because it's lighter. I'm lighter. My brain is lighter. And then comes, I'm having so much fun, kind of either in a conversation or just taking care of business. It will feel, I'll feel like this isn't right, or I'm having too much fun, or like the spotlight is on me. in the world. Am I supposed to take up this lighter energy and just, going with my, a tiny bit of heightened attention? And it feels so good to be small with this vastness. But then comes the story that, I'm taking up too much time or too much energy or something like that. And I can track that down with the 6 steps, but it's like, oh, bummer.
Yeah, it's interesting to start to open into an expression and experience of our true nature, and then have this, it's like the straps are pulled back on us. It's like we're shut down, and the old programming comes in. It's a collective program, and an individual one also. But the experience that you have until that point is such a contribution to a shifting reality, because the nature of reality is not work, and it's not stridency, and it's not limitation. It's fulfilling possibility all the time arising. And so the programming is what you're running into there, and you're clearly aware of that. But to remind yourself that your contribution now depends on you staying in that happy, free place. The coming home to ourselves is blocked by all of this conditioning that says you have to put others first. You know, I mean, a big part of the teaching that I do has to do with what does it mean to be on your own behalf? Because what happened with the early wounding is that we abandoned ourselves, turning toward an external reality and believing that that was the cause in the matter. And in many cases, for early childhood experience, it is the cause in the matter of getting neglected or shut down or whatever. But there's no correction for it out there. But when we do turn away from ourselves towards the external, then we lose all possibility of being authentically on our own behalf, because now we are attending to what is expected of us out there, or how to be a good girl, or how to be appropriate, or how to please mommy or daddy, or whatever it is. So you're really on the right track. You just got to extend the fun part, right? Thank you, Laurie. Yeah. Yeah, when the freedom starts to show up, we will tend to think that something's wrong, or that we should shut it down because of the programming, and because of our own self-limiting identities.
Cyrus has a question.
Where is she?
She's in the back.
There she
Just
is.
Come closer so people can hear her.
All right. Cyrus.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, you're just speaking everything to my heart right now. And I feel really contorted in here. Like I'm wanting to meet something here, but I'm so scrambled in a million different directions. But I know that the theme is similar to what's being spoken about. So there's this theme of personal exposure happening in my life. And I've known that this freedom is attached to that. I felt very limited in a type of secrecy and hiding of a deeper identity. And so now there are these beginning stages of exposure I'm making. And I was attached to some kind of freedom in that, but at least right now it's eliciting more fear-based contortion. And I that's all I have right now. But it feels like I'm very internally afraid.
Right. Yeah, that feeling, I don't know, have you done work with the 6 steps, Cyrus?
No.
Yeah, using that feeling of that fear that's giving you the inner contraction, that will take you into a direction that I think will be helpful to you, because what you're going to find is a very early experience when this adaptive behavior got installed to save you or to protect you, and the risk of having it be revealed for that inner child is really, really scary. And I think that's what you're what you're coming up against.
Yeah.
So do you have, and you don't have to share this out loud with anybody, but just as a beginning for you, that feeling of fear that is your experience right now, do you have an early memory of that same feeling?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even just looking at my birth history, in that I wasn't planned, so is a frame that I often look at, of feeling, am I wanted? Am I worthy? Especially in these stages of what feel like I'm expanding into a wider authenticity and truth.
Right.
It's this egoic tear of, once I'm seen, will I then be loved? Once I'm seen, will I then be received? Once I'm seen, will there be space for me? So I feel like it's related to even conception for me.
Yeah, the consideration of the abortion probably
Yeah.
was an early frequency that the fetus experienced. Yeah. To go through the 6 steps with that could be very beneficial, because the surface level of the experience is what you just described. But again, just like with Juliana, there's a conclusion you reached about yourself. What kind of person cannot afford to be seen, cannot afford to be acknowledged, or whatever those other ones were. You see, there's a belief there about the person that you are. I don't deserve, what kind of person doesn't deserve to live? Like all of that is going to come into a core self-concept that has to do with it is like a knot. It's like a Gordian knot of sorts. And your attention on it now, it can access it for you, so that you can begin to have the experience of yourself as the awareness that can see it. Because it's from that perspective that we can forgive it. Because the definition of forgiveness is when you get that everything that you had believed and concluded was never true. It was unavoidable, and it was and the information was true in regard to all of it, but the conclusion that you reached could never be true. And that's what the forgiveness is based on. But this is a really opening time for you. Does that direction help any?
Yes.
Yeah. But you can call and we can sit together.
Okay, great.
Who's running the show? It's startling when we start to realize that, we believe we decide things, but awareness is not deciding anything. It's a built-in kind of algorithm that has to do with, we're not even thinking, we're being thought. I mean, all of this starts to be startling to the personal identity ego self. My kindergarten version of how we're being thought is that what you believe about yourself is like a frequency, and it's like that. It has a kind of a radio tower transmitter thing, whatever, and that attracts every thought that matches I'm not good enough or I don't matter, right? And then that narrative is running in your mind, and we've been conditioned to believe what we think. And so we're being caught by that. And it seems not just valid, but absolutely true. But we're being thought. Now, when you drop the identity of the ego fear-based identity, the identity of the fearful child, when that falls away in the light of your conscious awareness, when that is dispelled, now you're not thinking, because you're clear in the moment and connected to all that is. And thinking is beside the point, actually. So the thinking falls away in that regard, and thinking becomes a function. It's not a function as long as you're being run by the ego, because the ego will run that narrative, that ongoing inner narrative, that radio that most all of us need to turn off, but have very little success in doing. We're being run by our mind, and the mind is being informed by the frequency of our conclusion about ourselves. Make sense to everybody? I can't see your faces, remember? I have no idea what you're thinking.
It's just helpful.
Okay. Yeah. So Merry Christmas to everybody. There's one more question here. I did see that hand.
Yeah, hi Polly,
Hi,
Christine here. I just want to say how grateful I am for the true north part of the 6 steps. Because without really being really on my own behalf and into the true north, I would miss some of these golden nuggets that are showing up with the 6 steps, because I'm run by the mind that you're speaking of, which is on automatic. And I've just been really grateful, Robin, for your work as well, where I've been pointed to see what the conditioning has been. And then when I'm like in a situation where I actually stand up for my true north, and then what comes up from that, and where I get pointed to what gets released based on that. It's just been really amazing. Was that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's sometimes taking Herculean strength to go against that conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
That the part that wants to be the good girl or in service, or even all the spiritual concepts that I have about what I'm supposed to do or eat or be or have, and it's like just to really continuously just see what that is in the moment, and then really see what shows up and where I get pointed.
Right here.
What was that?
Really grateful.
Yeah, it reminds me of the thing I forget who I was working with. Maybe it may have been you. But I was thinking about that Indiana Jones, I think the Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he was looking for the Ark of the Covenant or whatever, and he had to go across this giant chasm like the Grand Canyon or something, and he would not see the next step. It wouldn't be apparent until he'd been willing to take the first step, right? And then the next step would appear. Does everybody remember that scene? And, yeah, it's interesting because that occurred to me with someone I was working with, and then today I heard it from 2 other people on some YouTube thing, because it's so upright now, this ability and this willingness to step out and say, I'm right here, I got this, I'm doing it. And that feeling of, even though it's scary, I'm beginning to trust the frequency that's required to have that kind of courage, the unknown, that next step.
Thank you, Polly. So we're at 4 o'clock, and that's I see there's a hand. I don't know if you want to take it.
Who is it? Yeah.
All right, go for it.
I just wanted to echo what you were saying and try to be brief, that I had an experience this morning triggered and all the rest of it, and had been accumulating some sad feelings over a couple of days. All of a sudden, as I just walked out the door, I thought this melancholy is such a familiar experience, and it's just because I'm comfortable with that feeling. That's how I used to feel always, and somehow it just lifted. And we've talked about this together. I used to lay on chemistry or not enough sleep, or my depression or something, and it just somehow the actual, whatever one could call that emotional climate that I was in, just went away.
Beautiful. Yep. It requires our investment and attention to stay. It's not there on its own. It seems to be, but it requires that underlying belief. Yeah. Is there somebody else?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, everyone. Just a gentle reminder, if you would like to make a donation to Polly, she's got some medical expenses that we're trying to support her with her eyes. Any contribution would be wonderful. And we will be meeting next week. And we're going to stop the formal part here and go into 45 minutes of silent meditation. So you're welcome to stay or leave. And thank you again, Polly.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha, honey. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, all of you. Yeah. All of my days are holidays. Thank you all for participating in the coherent field.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Aloha, Polly.
Aloha, sweetheart.
See you next week. Merry Christmas. Happy solstice, happy Hanukkah.
Yeah. Happy,
Happy
happy,
everything.
happy, happy.
Happy awake.
Happy beach.
Let's be like into it.
Deborah. She'll do that later. No, that me. They're all